Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to Hungary once again for the first time in what feels like a good little while. So we're returning to a brewery that has featured on the channel twice before. These guys are the first Hungarian craft brewery that I've seen really breaking out of Hungary and moving across the European continent, and hopefully we'll see more following suit. But in my experience, they seem to be best known for the different kinds of IPAs and also their sort of fruity, juicy sour beers as well. The beers that I've tried from them, the first one was an Imperial Stout, the second one was a New England Double IPA, and then the one that we're going to look at today is a style that we haven't had from them yet. It's a style that I very much enjoy, but one that you unfortunately don't come across all that often anymore, which I think is a terrible shame. But this is supposed to be a really nice beer, and yeah, definitely nice to review more Hungarian beers and more beers within this style category. So yeah, needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to Budapest, the Hungarian capital, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Mad Scientist Brewing. So this particular beer is called Black Lines. It comes in at 9% ABV, and this one is an Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, Black IPA. So yeah, our first Hungarian Black IPA and our first double Black IPA in quite some time, in fact. But yeah, one thing to point out about this beer is that this contains only barley malt. A number of black IPAs that I've had in recent times seem to contain oats and wheat as well. So personally, I think it's right to say there is a New England black IPA as well as a West Coast black IPA these days. The West Coast, of course, is the one that's only barley malt. The New England is the one that's only wheat, that's got wheat and oats as well as barley malt in it. But yeah, this one seems as if it might be a little bit more old school. But yeah, love this style, and I don't think there's enough of them on the market these days. So this was a very nice find, actually. Incidentally, I bought this beer in the Beer Hive, Amar, in Copenhagen in Denmark, and they've always got some really interesting random beers there as well. They seem to get Mad Scientists quite regularly, in fact, which is quite a nice thing. And this one is apparently somewhat related to the liquid cocaine that I reviewed a couple of videos back. Actually, I was really glad I was able to try that one. So yeah, big shout out to Jessica and Nicolina there. I'll put the link to their Facebook and Instagram pages in the video description below, but do go and check out their shop if you find yourself in Copenhagen. They supply most of the Danish beer that I review here on the channel. But let's crack on with this one then and see what we have. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Mad Scientist Brewing before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer based on the geography tagging system. Use the search bar and you can search for your hometown, state, county, province, prefecture. If I've reviewed beers from your local area, they will definitely pop up. Otherwise, you can use the playlists of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Hungarian playlist, and I do hope that we can expand that over the next little while. So do let me know in the comment section below what Hungarian beers and breweries I should be looking at, or if you know a good web shop where I can order some of them, and we'll see about getting some of those to review here on the channel. But yeah, let's go on to my brewing notes then, and we'll tell you a little bit about Mad Scientist Brewing. And I will apologise in advance for any bad Hungarian pronunciations in this video, and there probably will be a few. But pardon me. And we'll try not to cough either. But anyway, Mad Scientists, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Budapest, the Hungarian capital, and the company was founded back in 2016 by Szabadtalian, Tamás Zsilyagi, and at Gergo Zawodzki. So Tamas and Saba attended the same high school in Budapest, albeit 1 year apart, and Tamas then trained in psychology, whereas Saba became a bioengineer. Tamas and Gergo, though, apparently met in a homebrewing competition, and he actually has a background as a mechanical engineer. But soon after they had all met and become familiar with each other, they began brewing together, and they later used their savings and also took a loan of 90 million Hungarian florins, which is about 250,000 euros, to fund their own brewing space, and then it's gone very well from them since then. But the brewery itself is located on the site of the former Royal Brewery, which in Hungarian is the Magyar Királyi Sörfőzde. Hopefully pronounced that correctly. But they started working on this site back in 2015, built up their infrastructure, got things working, and then they released their first beers commercially in 2016. Over the course of their first full year, they produced about 20 different beers, and they won numerous awards over the first couple of years for their things as well. And they've just expanded the brewery's infrastructure gradually. In my experience, over the last couple of years, they've become well known for their different IPAs, but also for their kind of fruity, juicy, sour beers as well. But they do a variety of different styles. And as of January 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced about 200 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd. So yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Mad Scientist Brewing. If you want to learn more, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on the usual social media, or if you want to learn more about the beers, you can check out the Untappd page where you'll see a comprehensive list of all the things that they've done. But yeah, let's go on and have a wee look at the beer itself then. You can check out those links, as I say, and do make sure you check out Beer Hive Amar in Copenhagen as well. We've got their website. We'll put the website, the Facebook, and the Instagram down there for you. So give them a follow whichever way you like. But anyway, just to let you have a little look at the artwork on this can before we open it up, you can see it's kind of like the front of, it's like the side of an engine or something like that. It's pretty nice artwork on this one, I have to say. So compliments to them for that. You can see there's a wee woman kind of sticking out there, and you can also see the Mad Scientist eye. But on the back of the can here, have they covered it up? No. You can see the Mad Scientist symbol there, which is this sort of conical flask. I know that because I studied chemistry, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, you can see plain black top on the can here. This one does say on the side too, independent craft brewery, which I do like. But yeah, I couldn't really find out much in the way of about what hops and things were in this one. That wasn't listed on the Untappd profile. It just literally said Black Lines Imperial Black IPA. So yeah, like I said earlier, this one only contains the malted barley, so it is more of a kind of West Coasty one. This beer cost me 61 Danish kroner, which at today's exchange rate is about 85 Swedish kroner, so that's going to be about €8.50. Somewhere in the region of £8 sterling, I guess, maybe a little bit less than that, maybe about £7.50, and somewhere in the region of like $9.50 American, just for those of you watching in different places. So yeah, a little bit expensive, I think, for Hungarian beer. Normally you would expect it to be a wee bit cheaper than that, and it probably is in Hungary itself, actually, but still, I think this one, if you know, I wanted to try something unusual. You don't see so many black IPAs. I don't care that much, to be honest with you. In Denmark, the currency is very strong just now, so it is a bit more expensive. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. The Black Lines Imperial Black IPA from Mad Scientist Brewery in Budapest. Yeah. So, one thing I do want to go and see in Budapest at some point is the Budapest Beer Week. My dad actually did a lot of work in Hungary. When he was in the police, he worked with the EU and NATO to help kind of restructure Hungary and the other kind of post-communist police forces once the Iron Curtain went up, if you like. So he did a lot of cool work out there. So I want to take him out to Budapest again and do something beery out there with him, because he seems to quite enjoy these things that we go and do. But anyway, that's for the future. But yeah, these guys, as I say, seem to be the first Hungarian craft brewery that have broken out of the country a bit and becoming slightly well known. So yeah, this is pretty cool. But anyway, this beer has poured pretty much exactly as you would expect for a black IP of any description, I guess we can say. So before the head disappears, I would say this one is poured with about a half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of fawn, slightly beige coloured head. You can see the bubbles in this one. It's got some small bubbles in there and a good few medium ones as well, but it looks very, very nice. In terms of the colour of this beer, it is pretty much what you'd expect. If we shine the light through this one, it's got not a lot actually in the way of transparency. I think the beer probably is unfiltered to an extent, but yeah, it does look pretty nice, I have to say. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there, but overall it does actually look very, very nice. But colour-wise, remember, the colour of these beers depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar is caramelised, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do, or any adjuncts that you put into the beer, will also affect the colour of it as well. But when it comes to beers that have a bit of black malt or special B or carafa or something like that, the black malts really make it very difficult to actually change the colour of the beer. So yeah, I think it looks pretty nice for a black IPA. You can see the head has faded away to be a nice thin foamy layer, but like I say, the thing that's surprising me about this one is that you get very little in terms of like a Coca-Cola or Pepsi coloured edge to this one, which you quite often get from this style. But I don't think we need to say anything else about the appearance of this beer. We can move on and have a wee look at the aroma, I would say. So let's do this. The aroma of black limes. Oh, that's nice. That is nice. I'd be very curious to know what hops are in this one, because there's just something really familiar about it. But yeah, this comes across as a proper old school black IPA. Now, one of my favourite examples of this style, will probably always be my favourite version of this style, is the black salts and body malts from Toto over in Denmark. That was one of the first ones that I tried, but it was just really, really nicely done. It's rated very highly, actually. I'm not sure when the last time they brewed that beer was, but it was absolutely lovely. I remember that. This beer really reminds me of that, and it seems to kind of have the same sort of vibe. This is a proper, like, old school, OG kind of black IPA. So yeah, I like that. And back in the day, I always enjoyed this style in the Imperial version, because I just felt that the kind of having that little bit of sweetness in the malt base to balance out the roasty backbone was always quite important. So yeah, the way that this one goes together, I think, is really nice as well. But yeah, this one gives you everything you want. You've got a little bit of the kind of toasty black malts in there. You've got a little bit of the kind of brown sugary sweetness. You've also got that big sort of piney, spicy floral note, and you've got the kind of oily, fruity characters out of this one. Yeah, this smells lovely. Let's try and break that aroma down for you though, and describe it a wee bit more in depth before we actually taste the beer. This is lovely. So, this beer, I will say, it does smell a wee bit different as well. So I wonder if they are using some kind of local malt in this one. They're probably using some kind of German malt in there as well, right enough. But yeah, I'd be curious to know about Hungarian malteries. And Hungary probably would be ideal for growing hops and things as well, when you think about the latitude that it's at. But anyway, so on the the malty backbone of this beer, first off, you do get a little bit of that roasty, toasty, slightly well fired. Yeah, there's a little bit of that roasty, toasty, slightly well fired backbone in this one, but at the same time, it's quite smooth. I'd be curious to know exactly what malt variety that is. There's probably a bit of crystal in this one. I think it could be some type of crystal, or maybe a little bit of carafa, something like that, because you are getting a little bit of that. With the bread crust, you're getting a little bit of that roasty, toasty bread crust, but above that, you're getting that sweeter, almost rye bread, but still quite dry bread crust as well. Absolutely, though, getting some kind of slightly sweet rye bread in there. Some wholemeal brown bread as well. And then above that, you start to get the little elements of kind of oily. You do get the elements of oily brown sugar coming out of this beer. So yeah, for me, there's definitely a little bit of that sweet oily caramel in the middle of the nose there, but you're also getting little elements of kind of toasty caramel too. So that's kind of interesting. Not too much, I would add, but definitely sweet caramel, toasty caramel, and then there's a little touch of a slightly kind of biscuity, McVitie's Digestive biscuity note to this beer. But as I say, all of that sits on top of a kind of rye bready note, a bit of a wholemeal bready kind of thing, and also some nice kind of woody characters. So there's a little touch of nuttiness to this beer as well, but that is pretty nice, and I think that kind of summarises the malt base in this beer for me. Yeah, I mean, aroma wise, the malty side of things is quite nice in this one. As I say, it's quite old school. Now, on the hoppy side of things then, the green component in this beer, like I say, is pretty old school. There's a nice little bit of earthiness coming out of it, so you're getting a wee bit of that in there. But you can tell this beer, it has a bit of that pine resin, it has a little bit of that kind of spicy floral aromaticity. I definitely think there's some Chinook in this. Pretty sure there's a bit of Chinook in this one. So definitely getting a bit of that kind of piney resin depth character to it. You can tell that there's been early edition hopping in there as well because of how dank the beer is. So remember, there's 3 kinds of hopping. Early edition, which is in the first hour of the wort boil, that gives you mainly bitterness. Late edition, within the last half hour of the wort boil, that gives you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour aroma. Then you've also got dry hopping as well, which gives you pretty much all flavour and aroma. So yeah, you can tell just from the dankness in this beer that there is early edition hopping in there as well. But yeah, nice deep kind of piney resinous note. Also a good little bit of bright but slightly spicy floral aromaticity. I don't think Columbus in this one. I do think it's just Chinook as the early edition hop. Maybe something else, but still. And at the front of the nose, there's a good little bit of... there's definitely a good little bit of grassiness and a slightly zesty character to the beer too. So yeah, aroma wise, the way this beer goes together, I think, is really nice in that sense. Yeah, so on the fruity component then, there's something with this beer telling me that this might be a bit of Cascade, a bit of Chinook, and then maybe something slightly orangey. Could be a little bit of Mosaic or Amarillo or something like that. It's a bit hard to tell, but there's definitely an orangey element to this beer, which makes me think, yeah, it's Amarillo or Mosaic. And I'm tempted to say it's Mosaic because it comes across as a little bit, it just comes across as a little bit more kind of tangerine-y than more oily and zesty, to be honest with you. But definitely something orangey in this beer. Behind that though, you definitely get a bit of that strong, you do get a little touch of that stronger grapefruit, but you've also got a little bit of raisin. You've also got a little touch of like juicy plum in there. And then, yeah, as I say, there's a little bit of like a sultana type quality as well, you know, sort of dry white green grapes, just like raisins, but yeah, white and green grapes. But I'm also getting some nice kind of blackberry. I'm also getting that kind of blackberry, blackcurranty type note out of it as well. So yeah, this is quite interesting, this one for sure. A lot of interesting aromas going on in this one, but like I say, this beer's a bit nostalgic for me. It really does remind me of that Toul black salts and body malts. But as I always say, take a wee bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. It's always half the experience with craft beer. But we've got the whole thing into the glass now, so I think it is about time that we try this one. So this is the Black Lines, an Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, black IPA from Mad Scientist Brewing in Budapest, the Hungarian capital. So we'll get stuck into this one and taste it out. Slánja, skål, cheers, and as they say in Hungarian, egészségre, if I've pronounced that correctly. Again, probably not, but let's do it going. Egészségre. It's interesting. First impression of this is very clean and actually quite slick beer. It's taken a wee bit of time to show its black IPA side, but you've seen how long it was since I took a sip. It's starting to show some of the roasty black malt in there. You've also got some of the nice kind of piney resinous notes pushing their way out now. And yeah, but definitely not as sweet as I thought it was going to be. Yeah. It's a nice, I'm going to say straight away, this is a nice beer, this one. And it's just really interesting because it really actually feels very light and very clean. And normally the black IPAs I've had, this is quite a strong one at 9% ABV. Normally the black IPAs that I've had have been a little bit more oily than this. When I think about the kind of more West Coasty barley malt only ones, they've usually been a little bit thicker than this and a wee bit more oily. But it really gives you everything you would expect of the style the further into the aftertaste that you go. One thing that I think you kind of also need to bear in mind with these beers is that, you know, compared to how they were back in the day, the when we think about what IPAs were available at that time, it was that the black IPA appeared a good bit before the New England IPA. So this one is proper old school. So the perception of an IPA and kind of fruitiness and things is all changed now. But this beer, I think it's really interesting, this one, but it's quite light and quite clean for me, but it gives you everything you would expect of the style at the same time. But I like this. I do like this one. As I say, it's a style we don't get to try all that often on the channel, but this is certainly quite different to what I've experienced with it before. I'm just curious as to how much, I'm really curious as to like how much my perception of this style has changed because of how IPAs have changed over the years. But anyway, let's try and break this one down a bit and just describe it as we always do. So middle of your palate then, backbone of the beer, you've got a little bit of that roasty, toasty, slightly well-fired bread crust there. That is the backbone of the beer. And it gets, you know, you've got a bit of a kind of gradient from the front of that middle third of your palate down to the back. So you've got a bit more of a kind of roasty, toasty. You know, it gets more bitter the further back on the palate you go, but as I've always said, more bitter and dry flavours come out further back on the palate, sweeter flavours come out further forward. So yeah, the fruity side of the fruity side of the beer, fruit's taking a little bit of time to come out as well. But on top of the roasty toasty backbone, like I was picking up in the aroma, it takes a wee bit of time to come out. And this beer is one that really, you know, you need to just let it show its hand. But on top of the roasty, well-fired bread crust there, you get a more rye bready bread crust there, which I do quite like. On top of that, you do have more of a kind of sweet rye bready character. The bready notes get a little bit sweeter the further into the aftertaste you go. But further forward on that middle, if you go further forward on that middle third of your palate, there's a wee bit more of a there's definitely a little bit more of a kind of there's a little touch of woodiness just comes out the further into the aftertaste that you go as well. But above the kind of rye bready layer, you've got a bit more of a kind of wholemeal brown bread, and that sort of smoothens out the beer actually. So that's interesting with this one. On top of that kind of, and I would say that bready layer really densifies and smoothens out the more you drink of this beer too. But on top of that bready layer, you've got this kind of big circle in the middle of your palate there where the brown sugars are. And it's kind of interesting because there is a very slight leatheriness to the base of that. Above that, there's a little hint of a more caramelised brown sugar, but in the straight in the middle, you do get that sweet, oily caramel note coming out of the beer. And as the beer kind of progresses into the aftertaste, you'll feel that over the sides of your palate, toward the kind of edges, you get a little bit more of a kind of McVitie's digestive, biscuity type quality coming out of it too. So yeah, it's actually a very straight shooting beer, this one, in terms of the middle third of the palate, but it works. It really does work. In terms of the back third of the palate then, the border region between the middle and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of that bready build up, which I do like. And it's kind of like a brown, it's like a sweet rye bread that you get in there for sure. So yeah, definitely a kind of sweet rye bready note there, but the layers on the back third of the palate are quite similar to what you get in the middle third as well. But yeah, you can feel that nice kind of roasty toasty, well fired backbone. Above that, you've got a bit more of a, above that you have a little bit more of a kind of, the kind of rye bready layer. You don't have so much of a bread crusty layer on that back 3rd palette, but you can feel that nice, dense, slightly dry and sweet rye bready layer. Then above that, you have, that more, how do we say? You've got a little bit of a more, kind of, it is like a wholemeal brown bread, but it's actually a little bit denser, but still quite airy in a sense. So yeah, the roasty well-fired bread crust is a bit drier and more well-fired in a sense. You've got the bread crusty notes, which are more grainy, a slightly more dense rye bready character, but then a taller wholemeal brown bread character sitting on top of that. That's quite interesting. Above that layer though, you get a wee bit of a more airy, you do get a little bit of a more kind of airy, kind of wholemeal bready character coming out of this one as well, which is, it's a bit more like a, it's got a little touch of white bready note to it, but you also get little edgy, little sorts of honeycomb in there too. But you can definitely feel that the back third of your palate, the flavour is definitely taller than, and you come into the middle third of your palate and it just kind of condenses down and squashes together. So that is quite nice. But yeah, malty wise, this one is this is quite nice. But I think we've said everything we really need to about the malty and yeasty side of the beer. Let's look at the hoppy side of things then. So green component first. Back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, there's a little bit of a kind of, there is a little touch of herbal character, but very quickly you get that deep dank, you do get that kind of deep dank piney resinous note. But as you move further forward towards the front corners of the palate, it's definitely got a bit more of a sort of floral aromatic spice to it. I do want to say Chinook in this one, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's something else, and it's certainly not the dankest of black IPAs that I can remember coming across actually. But this one, we have to remember, this will be fairly fresh, and this is a style that I think actually can mellow out a little bit if you leave the beer to, then you can leave this beer, if you drink it after about 2, maybe 3 months in the can, they can really mellow out quite nicely in that kind of time frame. But yeah, like I say, a little bit of spicy floral aromatic note in the front corners of the palate, then round the front curve of the tongue. I think it goes together really nicely, so gets a thumbs up from me there. But yeah, the green component in this one is pretty nice actually, and it feels quite familiar, but just, yeah, a little bit of zesty but slightly oily grassy character there. But let's look at the front third of your palate there. So the border region between front and middle third of your palate, you've got a nice little bit of a kind of bready build up in there. And I'd say there's a little bit of that toasty bread crust, but it is more like a kind of sweet rye bready note there. The base of that front third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of the roasty toastiness, bit of bread crust, and a wee bit of a smooth brown bready thing as well. But then on top of that, you've got that nice oily, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's focus on that and see what this is going to have in store for us. So, the fruity side of this beer, this, it's definitely not the kind of sweetest and juicy, fruitiest of black IPAs that I've come across actually. But again, I do wonder, maybe I've drunk this one a little bit too early. I don't know, maybe I have drunk this one a little bit too early, or maybe it's just not as fruity as the other ones we've had before. One of the hops that was always really interesting to use in black IPAs was Simcoe, because Simcoe would give you this lovely in a black IPA at least, it will give you these lovely red fruity notes. This one for me, I've got a feeling this could just be like a bit of Chinook and Mosaic or something like that. It just feels a little bit, the fruity character in this one isn't madly complex. There's a bit more in the aroma, I think, than there is in the actual flavour of the beer. But yeah, at the back of that front third of your palate, there's definitely a little bit of that stronger grapefruity character in there, which I do like. So yeah, stronger grapefruity notes there. As you move further forward, there is a wee touch of like a sultana dry grapey note and a little bit of pear almost in there as well. So you've got grapefruit from what I suspect is Chinook, a little bit of sultana and kind of peary note. I do wonder if there's a bit of cascade in this just from these flavours that I'm getting. But as you move into the middle of that front third of your palate, you start to get a little touch of a slightly red figgy note, and into the front half of that front third of your palate, you've got a little bit of like blackcurrant in the base, but then above that you've got a little bit of that of a kind of orangey character, which I really suspect that is Mosaic. So yeah, I really suspect there's a bit of Mosaic in this one. The further into the aftertaste you go though, definitely a bit of fig and black currant and stuff coming out of the beer. But yeah, a wee bit of grapefruit and a wee bit of a sultana peary type thing behind it. So yeah, I do like how that goes together. The fruity side of this one is quite interesting, but like I say, I do wonder. I would be curious to know the hops in this one. I've got a feel maybe Chinook, a little bit of Cascade maybe, and then some Mosaic or something like that in this one. But yeah, potentially that's the one thing. I think the malty base in this beer is done quite nicely. The kind of hoppy bitterness is good, but I do think this one just needs a wee bit more fruitiness to it, like a little bit of Simcoe or something in there just to give it that wee bit more fruity complexity could be nice. But yeah, when I think about black IPAs as well, this one definitely leans toward the more it definitely leans a little bit more toward a kind of orangey character, but I like it. I do like this one, but as I say, black salts and body malts hasn't been toppled with this one. That is the thing. But let's round off this review with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So, mouthfeel wise, like I said, this is a very clean, very slick beer. For me, it's kind of mid-bodied. Top end of mid-bodied maybe. Smooth carbonation, like we said, very slick. IBU count wise, I wouldn't be surprised. I think this is maybe about 60, I think it's maybe about 60, 70-ish IBUs. It's not going to blow the head off you. You've got a bit of IBU from the malty backbone, the dry roastiness, also from the hops as well. But then you've got some nice bready notes in there. You've got a bit of oily character within the malt base as well. So yeah, breadiness, graininess, oily sweetness, and you've got some nice juicy fruity characters in this one. But yeah, it's certainly not the most complex beer in terms of its fruity notes. We have to say that about it. But yeah, have I enjoyed this beer? Yes. Is it a good black IPA? Yes. But I think it just maybe needs another hop in there to build up the fruity complexity, and then they've got a winner with this one, I think. But yeah, this has been an interesting one to try. I think we can leave it at that for this review. This was the Black Lines, 9% ABV, Black Double IPA, Imperial Black IPA, whatever we're going to call it, from Mad Scientist Brewery in Budapest in Hungary. So yeah, really enjoyed this one actually. So big thumbs up to these guys for doing something just a wee bit different. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Mad Scientist as well. Do give me some Hungarian brewery and beer recommendations, and we'll see about making those happen on the channel over the next little while. Web shops too are always very welcome suggestions. But thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out Mad Scientist social media, and I'll see you guys again soon. Slange, skull, cheers, or as I think they say in Hungarian, egészségre. Cheers just now.